Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with the one and only Charles Coulombe.
Yeah, that's actually not quite true. To be honest,
No?
No. My nephew, Charles Coulombe, is just starting at seminary here in the beautiful Archdiocese of LA. Next month, September. Or this month. And there's the great Shroud of Turin, after whom I was named, a great scientist. So I'm not the only one.
Okay, well...
I'm the loudest.
That's true.
The one's dead and the other's in seminary, so by default it goes to me.
Okay, good enough.
All right.
So we have a very special episode for you. The finale of Off the Menu.
It's true. Did you go to the going away lunch at the commissary?
No.
You know, they actually bought me a new can of tuna.
Really?
They showed me the purchase date. I was impressed. And the suits had a going away thing for me in the contemplation garden. They gave me, are you ready for this?
What?
Glasses of sparkling water, as much as I wanted.
Impressive.
And pretzels. And that wasn't all that happened. The motor pool guys, they all gave me beef jerky. I got space food sticks from the secretarial pool. And, are you ready for this?
Okay.
This is my last day and all that. I was very excited, so I figured maybe I've got privileges. I went all the way up to the 57th floor. I got off. I went to the private penthouse elevator, and I told your brother's private elevator man. I told him it's my last day. I want to see the big guy before I go.
So what happened?
Oh, I can't tell you.
What?
I can't tell you. You know, all meetings with your brother are strictly private. You can't tell me what happens when you see him on his birthday every third year. I can't. I can't tell you what happened. Suffice it to say that he did give me a symbol of his regard.
What?
It's the first Trident gum I have had since I was a teenager.
I didn't know you chewed gum.
When I was a teenager, I did. And I didn't chew this, and I'm going to hold on to this stick of Trident gum until it falls apart. But other than that, no, it's actually been kind of a tearful farewell up and down the building this time. And it's hard for me to believe. I don't know what we could do. I mean, how do you mark a moment like this? I don't know.
Well, as I said, we have a very special episode for you today. It's so special, in fact, that I won't be hosting it.
Scotty, beam me back up.
It's all magic. Halloween came early.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is my longtime speaking partner, one of my best friends, one of the best people you'll ever know, a tremendous writer. He was a professor playing in many of the sporting houses in Storyville. I mean, this man, this, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, fans of the Endless Knot and the Father Baptist series, this is Professor William Biersack III.
How do y'all do?
Wow. What part of the Knights Plutonian Shore did you wash up from?
I don't know. There I was at home, minding my own business, and suddenly, and here I am.
It's Halloween magic in September.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
this
good
is
seeing you again.
It's good seeing you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Welcome home, or whatever.
Yeah, welcome homer.
You were here for the inauguration of the building, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Gee, and that was it. You're published here. You must come by and pick up your rotaries or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, gee, when was the last time you saw the big guy?
Which big guy?
The man in the dark in the high castle. No, our master in the penthouse. Stephen!
Gosh, it's been a while.
Yeah, he doesn't see nobody.
No.
Well, I'll tell you what. In your honor, this is my fabulous Christmas cup.
I don't know if you can see it, but it's a Christmas cup, yeah.
It has given me hope through the heat of many an LA summer. My cup's up to you, old man.
Oh.
Welcome to Off the Menu.
Ah, well, it's good to be here. And this is your last?
It is.
Very last.
Oh, crocodile tears, squirt, squirt. Yeah,
more like platypus for me. But yeah.
No, it's true. I'm going bye-bye.
Yeah, off to Austria.
Österreich.
Yeah.
There's a reason he doesn't speak German.
Yep.
But no, I'll be going for if of course I may be a total loser and blow out of the program within a month. But
well, you're going to be on the other side of the podium for a change.
What do you mean?
You're going to be a student.
Yes. Although we'll be giving lectures as well.
Well, only you could pull that off. But I'd like to be the fly on the wall when you are the student. Yes, I would like that very much.
Well,
to actually see you hiding your cell phone under the table so as to not to be caught, and pretending to write profusely when you're actually doing your notes for your next class that you're going to be teaching. I mean, how does he pull this off?
But, you know what's weird about this, don't you? My very good pal and former roommate at NEMI, Alan Mather, just sent his son 40 years after he and I arrived there to MMI. And now 40 years after I started college at NEMI, I'm going back.
Mm-hmm. It'll do you good.
Says you.
Yeah.
Would you like to go back to college?
No.
No?
No.
Join a sorority?
No.
No? No. They don't have sororities at this place I'm going to.
They don't?
No. They don't have fraternities now.
No. Do they have classrooms?
Oh, they have classrooms.
Yes.
They do. But it all takes place in an old castle. It does. Seriously. Schloss Trumau.
Yes.
Although the students don't live in them. They have modern apartments for us to live in. And no, I won't be having a roommate to answer your question. The idea of quartering some teenager with the old guy was a little grotesque. For which I'm grateful, to be honest. Gosh. Anyway. So you've taken over for the rest of the episode. You've taken away from our Vinny.
Yeah, well, I apologize for that, but there just isn't enough room in this frame for all three of us.
Well, I'm not going to comment, being a thin person myself.
Yes, I can see. But anyway, so I understand that we're going to have some questions.
We do.
Yeah.
We always have questions.
Okay, and I get to read them.
Ah.
And you get to answer them.
I get to answer.
And then I get to make grim faces while you're
Well,
answering them and
and
trying to
jump
get
in.
you to...
Feel free. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy next to me is one of the wisest people I know. And I respect his judgment tremendously. Except in
That's
things...
why he calls me in the middle of the night. Bill, what should I do?
Well, actually, it's more like drug calling. Well, you're the best friend I ever had.
Yeah, with a lampshade on his head. It's amazing. Okay, well, shall I start?
Yeah, let her rip. See what happens.
Let's see. From Patty Fournier.
Hi, Patty.
What is your opinion of bullfighting?
Whoa.
I don't want to come off as a moralizing yank, but it seems to me that the practice violates the Church's teaching on animals. Reference the Catechism of the Catholic Church, 2415 and to 2418. I know it is an ancient Iberian practice, but what do you make of it?
No?
Mm-hmm.
All right, fine. What do I make of it? Well, firstly, North Americans, in my opinion, Patty, this isn't for you, this is a general comment. North Americans, in my experience, are horrified by the barbarities of bullfighting, but don't see anything wrong with boxing. Now, to me, the sort of almost ballet-like movements of the bull and the corridor, which, by the way, in Portuguese bullfighting is non-lethal to the bull, just so you know. Especially given its antiquity and given the fact that the church has repeatedly approved it, despite what's in the catechism at the moment. I say at the moment because recently the Holy Father has shown us that the catechism is infinitely mutable. It can be changed anytime you want to, so I wouldn't rely on the catechism really for anything unless you look up the references. And if the references refer to something authoritative, then you're home. But if not, it could be whatever pops in anybody's head the next time there's another edition. But as I say, North Americans don't seem to have a problem with boxing, but think bullfighting is barbarous. And I don't say that either to annoy boxing fans. It just seems to me that that's the game you're going to play. Man against bull, and usually winning, is far more civilized than two guys beating the garbage out of each other. Or worse, taking that further, extreme fighting. That everyone, and worse yet, watching it. These blood-crazed people looking at the equivalent of Fight Club. That's okay, but bullfighting's barbarous. No. But the thing you got to bear in mind, though, about the church's teaching on animals is that while it's against, the church is very much against unwarranted cruelty to animals, but it's not because the animals have rights. It's because it can demean the person doing it. In other words, if your 12-year-old is torturing Fido to death, Fido, lovely dog, and I'm sorry it's happening to him, but Fido has no rights.
Well, he doesn't have a soul.
No. At least not an immortal one. He has something that's keeping him together and moving, but he doesn't have an immortal soul. But little Johnny, who's doing it, is debasing himself. And of course, as we know, cruelty to little animals is one of the signs of a serial killer in formation. I'm not saying it'd be funny either. You'd be surprised how many of these loons started out with animals and smaller children. We have to avoid anthropomorphizing animals. And don't get me wrong. I grew up with pets. I loved every dog I've ever had. I've loved every cat I've ever had. But if I had a choice between saving my nephew, or forget my nephew, if I had a choice between saving my neighbor next door or Fido during when the apartment house goes up in flames, I'm afraid Fido's toast. Mm-hmm.
Well, as Patty said here, it's an ancient Iberian practice. It does go back to Roman time.
It does.
And as I understand it, in originally the Roman form of bullfighting actually involved the person being on a horse,
yes,
using a lance. And it wasn't until 1726 that a young man actually faced the bull on the ground.
Yeah.
And that's, but even then, it was all surrounded with pageantry, and there were also the bull runs. In fact, it's the corrida de toros. Is the running of the bulls is all. We don't know what it's like being in a culture that is immersed in animals.
The closest we come to it are rodeos.
Yeah.
And there's a whole rodeo circuit. I just saw a movie about this fellow who gets severely damaged. Bronco busting, or not bronco busting, bull busting. And that happens a lot. But again, you're right. We're not used to this. For us, and this is where PETA and guys like that get all excited. For us, animals, we see animals first as pets. Rather than as agriculture. If we saw them as agriculture first and then as pets, they'd be different. But when you say to someone, when you say to a sweet old lady who identifies fox hunting with killing her kittens, you can't argue with such a person. Mm-hmm. And believe me, I know this because I wrote an article on hunting once, praising the fox hunt and the stag hunt and all that. And this lady, from a seaside retirement villa in England wrote me a letter saying what a terrible unchristian article I'd written, and that she should be horrified if anyone did that to her cats. And I assured her that I didn't think anybody would be hunting her cats with hounds. But you see, we're so subjective. It's all about how we feel, our emotions. Oh, those foxhunters are terrible. How could you do that to little Fluffy? They're not doing it to little Fluffy. How many chickens does little Fluffy kill a year? 0! Maybe a few songbirds. But anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah.
So, you got anything more on that, Prof?
No. Other than the Catechism of the Catholic Church does mention this.
It does.
Okay.
At the moment.
It must be the first catechism to ever mention cruelty to animals.
Yeah.
As a moral wrong, because catechisms are generally concerned with the salvation of souls, immortal souls.
Well, that was when we had them to be saved.
Oh, I see.
Now it's not. Now we didn't. Everyone is saved by virtue of being born, so it doesn't matter.
I see. Also, the catechism was originally written in
Latin. No, it wasn't. It was written in
French.
Yeah.
French, yes. Well, you know about the French.
They're wonderful. But in this particular case, it was written in French by Germans.
Okay.
Cardinal was Austrian. Cardinal Schönborn and them.
Yeah.
It just struck me all at once. I think that most of the drafters of the Catechism were not French, but they were writing in French.
They were writing in French. So
which then had to go into Latin.
Maybe it's a transliteration problem.
Who knows? Well, because when the Pope suddenly decided it had to alter, it altered. But that transcends Latin. That's mind power. Like the Spacing Guild in Dune.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, the Supreme Court.
We've
done this to death. What else we got?
Okay. Patty, I hope you're satisfied.
See what you did to us?
Yes, okay.
What do we got?
Now, Jay Voiles, what is your opinion of natural family planning?
I have none.
Okay, next question.
No, I just, the truth of the matter is that I know people who are very passionately committed to it and passionately against it, and they have very long, drawn-out arguments, which I find difficult to follow. And they're generally very violent about it, So I'm afraid I have no opinion.
Well, neither of us is in a position to have an opinion.
Well, there's that. Well, what with being bachelors and not having kids? There's that.
So, it's always easy when you're outside. You don't have skin in the game.
Yeah.
But
see, these folks do, which is probably why they're so.
Right.
I mean, think about it. If you have been using natural family planning, and someone comes along and says it's wrong, you're angry because they're saying you're wrong and you're being immoral. Or at least that's the way you'll take it. Mm-hmm. Contrary-wise, if you're on the other side and someone says, oh no, natural family planning is great. Oh, really? And all the sacrifice I've been doing is for nothing. Neither one of those, no one in either position is going to be happy with you. Mm-hmm. And you can see why.
Right.
And if you step forward as a bachelor and express an opinion, you'll get your head handed to you.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't want our heads handed to us.
No, especially not with apples and,
Okay, that's what's known as a dodge, Jay.
In the trade, it's called a dodge, yeah.
But
the bachelor's headed hand have I.
Is that Elphine?
Elphine Madeleine Cabet.
Yes, what a beautiful first name.
Yeah, Elphine.
Okay.
No, it'll be pronounced Elphine or something. It will look like idiots, but that's all right.
No, I am sure that she is part elf. I bet she has pointed ears.
And just the slightest touch of green to her complexion.
Just a little. Well, listen to her question.
All right.
My dad and I had a discussion about skinwalkers recently.
Ooh.
I was wondering if you could enlighten us with your opinion on the subject. What do you think they are? Will they ever be explained? My dad thinks they might be a very low class of demon. I myself don't know what to think, but I would like to know more.
Ooh, loudy. The skinwalker in Native American, particularly Navajo, Indian lore, is a shape-shifting witch. I think that's a fair way to put it. I can turn to various animals, particularly unpleasant ones. And in that sense is very much related to the werewolf of Western Europe, Latin America, and Quebec, and Louisiana. I've been accused of fence sitting a lot. And as I showed with the last question, sometimes it's quite justified. In this particular case,
when your tailor was only complaining to me the other day about the interesting places that he has to patch up your pants.
Well, there is
so
that.
I can attest to the whole fence.
As a shapeshifter myself,
Yeah.
well, we did have the DNA done. I told you we had the family had the DNA done. And turns out, as we figured, we are primarily human.
But part Neanderthal.
Alien, elf, werewolf, vampire.
Whole thing. Okay.
But 60% human gives us our appearance.
Yeah. See, I don't have to have mine tested because I'm half Hungarian. So I know I'm half werewolf.
You know what Joshua said.
Yeah.
Of course I'm crazy. I'm Hungarian. Yeah. Anyway, no. The thing is that it's a motif. The shape-shifting motif is a very common one in the world's folklore all across the globe. And I've always said, and people who watch this will have heard me say in the most hemming and hawing tones possible, that I think it's very possible because it's just difficult for me to believe that there'll be all this smoke in every age and amongst almost every people without there being some kind of fire to it. Now, what that fire might be, I do not know. In earlier broadcasts, I've spoken about the possibility that the people that are supposed to be the UFO abductors are really of the sort that our ancestors would have called fairies or elves. But again, I have no personal experience of this. I don't know. It seems likely, given the evidence before me, but none of it is what you would call remotely decisive.
Well, my 2 cents would be
if
you're interested,
throw in the whole nickel.
A nickel or maybe a dime.
All right.
A friend of mine who used to be very interested in New Mexico. He was thinking of moving there and spent all his time there. Told me about the writings of Tony Hillerman.
Yeah.
Who wrote a whole series of detective novels that all occur on the Navajo reservation. And he did an excellent job of weaving Navajo religion and traditions and superstitions into his detective stories. And if you want to know about these things, I highly recommend it. I believe Hillerman was Catholic. So I know most of what I know about skinwalkers. He actually, one of his books was called Skinwalkers. And so...
are there skinwalkers in the book?
There are... I won't answer that.
Yeah.
Okay, you have to read the book to find out. But anyway, you see, the whole Navajo approach to life is so different than ours that you kind of have to get into it a little bit to understand where they're coming from. And that's what he did a very good job of doing, was kind of getting under the skin of the Navajo while not actually immersing himself in it. So it's interesting, but that's about as far as I can go with that.
All right, what else we got?
Okay, Jacob, no last name. Or maybe that is his last name.
Or maybe he's writing from his ladder.
Okay. Is it true that Pius IX submitted to aid funding of the Confederate war against the Union? What is the proper understanding of church and state in this matter, and what historical precedents or insights are there for such a relationship, especially in light of the kingship of Christ in the mystical body of the church?
Well, for starters, I don't know that he aided the Confederacy financially. I know that he recognized the Confederate States as independent. At the same time, of course, he also allowed Dagger John, the Archbishop of New Orleans, John Hughes, not New Orleans, New York, to recruit in 1860 from demobilized Irish members of the Papal Army. These came and fought in our Civil War, and some of them went on for the Indian Wars. Most notably, Custer's second in command, whose body was not damaged by the Sioux when they saw the papal medals for gallantry on him. A lot of the Sioux were Catholic. Anyway, I digress. Well, you've got several different things going on at once. Firstly, the authority that the Holy See has had and has claimed in matters of church and state has declined all down through history. Once upon a time, the Pope was considered to be the repository of imperial authority during an interregnum between a gap between emperors, which is why Pope St. Leo III felt he could pull it back into existence and crown Charlemagne as emperor in the West. Well, we've gone all the way down from that to now to where the church does not even dare to call professedly Catholic countries to account for their embracing of infanticide. So you see this, there's been a change, you know. The truth of the matter is that the proper role of the state is to assist the church in her proper role, which is the salvation of souls. Now, obviously, most churchmen today don't believe in the one. Most states don't believe in the other, so it works together very nicely. You know, unbelieving rulers, unbelieving churchmen, it's just great. Now, so late as the time of Pius IX, it's a different story. He held the papal states. Now, while he did try to treat the Union and the Confederacy with a certain amount of equanimity, it's important to bear in mind that he, like a lot of other European conservatives, saw the Civil War very much in terms of what was going on in Europe at the time. The Sardinians were trying to force the Italian states into one. Prussia was trying to force the German states into one. The liberals in Spain, Portugal, and France were very centralizing and wanted to, and succeeded, in destroying local liberties. So against that background, Europeans looked and saw the fight in the Civil War. And as a result, conservatives tended to support the Confederacy, and liberals tended to support the Union. Now, there were exceptions, but that's the way it tended to be. Interestingly enough, the most pro-Union ruler was the Tsar of Russia, Alexander II, who had liberated the serfs. So he considered himself and Lincoln, after the Emancipation Proclamation, to be sort of kindred spirits. And he actually sent fleets to San Francisco and New York to underline his support for the Union. And since Karl Marx also came out for the Union, I think this is one of the few times you could see Marx and the Tsar on the same page. But as far as church and state goes, you know, the claim has been made recently that some of Peter's pence was used to fund Hillary's campaign. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if that's true, but if so, it would simply mean that the Holy See thought that the Holy See of today, that is to say Pope Francis, thought that the election of Hillary would be more conducive to the interests of the church than the election of Trump. No, I mean, popes have been wrong in prudential judgments before, and that's a prudential judgment. Anything political the Holy See does is prudential, and they have made some huge ones.
Would that a decision actually have come from the Pope, or could it have just been those in charge of the bank? Or
no. I mean, the diverting of a large chunk of Peter's pence for something political like that. No. I mean, I could see it if it was Peter's pence from some country that doesn't give a lot, but from us, I'm sure he's got his eyes on us. That's why, you know, my little joke was that when Archbishop Gomez was passed over for the Red Hat, he should not send more Peter's pence to Rome than Cardinal Tobin of Indianapolis, now Newark, would send. Because otherwise Cardinal Tobin would feel bad that a mere archbishop was sending more than he, a high and powerful cardinal. Same with Cardinal Seepage of Chicago. Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and any other see that was passed over for the Red Hat should make a point of not sending more to Rome than those seas with red hats send. The lowest in particular. I mean, stop and think for this for a second. Imagine that you were Cardinal Tobin, and say, I don't know how much it is, but say LA was sending $660 million in money for Peter's pence, and all you could come up with 10 grand. How bad would you feel? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it would be the best thing the holies around Los Angeles and Philadelphia and the others could do is to send no more than 9,999, so that Cardinal Tobin would not feel bad about himself. That's the way you deal with these things. And I know the Holy Father would understand, because he's not about money. It's all about humility. Right. And one way to be humble is to lose your dough. But at any rate, I digress. As far as church and state goes, sometimes the church, because it lives in the world, does have to make political decisions, as long as its subjects live in the world. Sometimes they're dead wrong. Pius IX did not know what he was doing when he made his deal with the Mexican government that ruled the Cristeros. He was wrong. I mean, not wrong the way he would be wrong if he said there were two people in the Trinity, but it was a factual mistake. Similarly, Blessed Innocent the 11th, I think, and this is a matter of conjecture, so who knows, maybe I'm wrong, but I think he was wrong to back William of Orange against James II at the Battle of the Boyne. I think that was wrong. He had his reasons for doing it. I mean, of course, they seemed good to him at the time, I'm sure. Similarly with Urban VIII, backing the King of Sweden, Gustavus Adolphus, against the Holy Roman Emperor, who was forced to say, I will be the champion of the church despite the Pope. See, infallibility does not protect papal political decisions. And mind you, that doesn't mean they're always wrong either. Sometimes they're so spot on. Pius VI saw the threat that revolutionary France, posed toward Europe before anybody else did. So, you got to look at it on a case-by-case basis. And similarly, Pius XI, who was so wrong with Mexico, was so right when it came to Stalin, Hitler, and Mussolini. So
it's complicated.
It's complicated.
Excuse me one second. Scotty, could you beam down a glass of water, please? Thank you, Scotty.
More autumn magic. You know what? There's one of the differences between you and me.
What's that?
You like to attribute this to science. I like to attribute it to magic.
Okay. What's the difference?
Ultimately, not much. Then it's like the difference between voodoo and economics.
I thought voodoo was economic.
No, it's got a higher success rate. What else we got?
Well, let's see. Covington Loftus.
I love that name, Covington Loftus. That's great.
I think that's a real name.
Who cares?
Who knows?
It's a great name, though.
Yeah. What is your opinion on cremation?
Ooh.
To my understanding, it is a point of contention among traditionalists and moderns in regards to the teaching of the resurrection of the body. Is there a correct process of interment?
Well, first, I used to love cremation ice cream when I was a kid. What? You remember the little cremation truck would go along?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
It was cremation, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. I'm all
Whatever you say. Whatever you say.
That was carnation. Stop it.
No, it's cremation.
Cremation ice cream.
And see, I can never...
Every flavor was great.
The word cremation, what it always does to me is remind me of the time I was driving down Woodbury by the Mountain View Cemetery.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly there was a blowout in the crematorium. And this gigantic yellowish cloud came rolling across the street. And I drove through it.
Oh!
And guess what came in through the vents and everything? And I realized
Oh, geez.
Mm. And so the word cremation always gives me the jitters.
Suffer a secondhand. Well, let's see. All right. Well, the thing is, cremation as we know it, as opposed to the Far Easterners, the Romans, or whatever, who also practiced it, did not exist until the beginning of the 18th century, when the Enlightenment people came up with it precisely to ridicule and denounce the Catholic view of the resurrection of the body. And so the church condemned it. Now, in our day, it's been legalized. That doesn't make it the best thing you can do, but, well, there's a big but here. One of the reasons for its legalization has been the fact that you won't believe me, it's expensive. It costs a bundle to inter someone properly. And this is a place where I think the Catholic cemeteries, in this country anyway, have really fallen down on the job. Not that everything else Catholic hasn't also, but this is very specific. Because traditionally Catholic cemeteries allowed Catholics to bury their dead with the full panoply of the church's ritual at a cheaper cost than secular or Protestant or whatever cemeteries would charge. That was the mission of the Catholic cemetery. But today, they're way more expensive. Now, I don't see that.
Well, they're no longer subsidized by the Catholic Church anymore. They're all private enterprises, aren't they?
Well, that's
or
true.
At least here in L.A.
That's true in this archdiocese, because Cardinal Mahoney sold them. He sold the rights anyway, not the land, to a civil thing, jacked up the prices, and then they try to make you feel guilty for not going to them. You know. So once again, the church has failed her people, or at least churchmen have failed their people, because again, it is to the degree that the institutional possibly can, the institutional church, she should try to make it easier for Catholics to live their Catholic life entirely. I know.
So
all the way from unmolested children in school to burying grandpa in the ground.
Okay, now let's just take a pause and back up a second. All right, now at the resurrection, it's up to God to put together our bodies,
which obviously He can do out of anything.
And obviously, if people have died in fires, wars, and what about burials at sea?
Oh, you just wait till they come back.
No, but I mean, they had to do this.
Well,
they couldn't carry bodies when shipping took so long, and so they would put them in the ocean. You know, they get bitten into a million pieces by fish and stuff, and so the body is not held in some place.
No, but that's all understood. But none of that. That's all things beyond one's control. The financial part is often enough beyond the individual's control. But it's up to the church to try to work that.
No, what I'm talking about, the principle of why cremation is frowned upon. If it is to try to venerate the body and keep it intact, it doesn't have to be kept intact.
No, but remember something very important. From the very beginning, St. Augustine, for instance, teaches the Christian body is intact. It shouldn't be burned as was done in those days, because it's been baptized, it's been confirmed. There's a whole body of teaching about this. Now, obviously, necessity is one thing. The church has always understood necessity. But what I'm saying is the totality of Catholic teaching has always seen that the best thing to do with the Catholic body that has been baptized, confirmed, is to bury it. She permits other things because, these things happen. But what I'm saying is, since we know what the ideal is, what's one of the corporal works of mercy is burying the dead. What do you think that means? It means paying for them. That's what it means. Our Lord Himself was a recipient of that kind of charity. That's why they didn't burn Him to a crisp, but rather a wealthy Catholic provided a tomb for him. A wealthy proto-Catholic, I should say. Similarly, the church has an obligation to try to make available for her children the fullest possible Catholic life from baptism till burial. And that includes making it easier for Catholics to bury their dead instead of having to burn them because they can't afford to do otherwise. That is an obligation the Church has, and she has fallen down on it miserably. That's one of the reasons we have the Knights of Columbus and all these other Catholic organizations. These things were founded to help poor Catholic immigrants feed the orphans and the widows and bury the dead. All these bon amour societies that grew up over the years, they were for pray for the dead, yes, but also to bury them. This is a big thing in Catholic culture and Catholic history. And the fact is that since we permitted cremation, the Church has fallen down completely on the job. Now, I'm not judging Catholics who find themselves forced to cremate because it's out of their control. What I'm saying is, as with so much else, our church hierarchy have horribly failed their people in this area.
Okay, well, this and other areas.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I smack you in the jaw, I take your wallet, I kick your cane out from under you, I grab your suit. Oh, you know what? I also said you were a nice man at the club.
What was that movie? Stop! We're your friends.
Yeah.
Invaders from Mars.
Invaders from Mars.
Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
That's right. And for some reason,
come back. We're your friends.
And after a while, people stopped believing them. I don't know why. That was a fun movie. Anyway, all right.
We digress.
What else we got? That happens a lot on this show. Don't let it bother you.
Okay. Oh, now here's someone named Joe.
Not ragtime cowboy Joe.
No, but just Joe.
Joe.
All right. What are your thoughts on veganism?
Ooh.
I have been watching vegans online for a very long time. Why would you be watching vegans, Joe?
Is this a fetish? Go ahead.
I've been watching vegans online for a very long time, and though they seem to have good intentions, they seem to overvalue animals and undervalue people. Is veganism good or evil? Do they have any good points?
Well, they're delicious. I mean, vegans, yeah. They're scrumptious. I mean, especially served with a little cream and bacon sauce. No, I'm a vegan myself. I never eat anything that eats meat, unless it's a bear. But no, seriously, the answer, this actually goes back to our bullfighting.
Yes.
In the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Animals exist for man, not man for animals. They bring him in various ways, various times. They bring him cover, sustenance, companionship, depending on the animal. I mean, I wouldn't like to hang out with a shark. And sometimes shelter, when you make your tents out of animal skins or whatever. But they exist for us, not us for them.
When we think of the shepherd with his flock.
Yeah, what are
the little sheep all over the place, and how they follow the shepherd around. And there is a point where there's a reason why a shepherd keeps sheep. There are two. Okay.
What could they be?
One is for the wool. Well, in old times, it was more like snip, snip, or whatever they.
Clack go the shoes.
Yeah. And then, well.
What could they put? Milk.
Oh, okay. Maybe there's three things.
Use milk.
Only sheep are not usually used for milk. Goats.
Cheese, but they have sheep's milk cheese.
Who does?
Europeans.
Maybe your people do. But
Hungarians have bat cheese.
Goats would be more of a source of.
Yeah,
of course, they always keep goats with cheese. So I mean, with sheep. But
Hungarians have bat cheese. Milk from bats. Go ahead.
All right. At some point, there's the third reason why a shepherd keeps sheep.
What could that third reason be, Uncle Bill? I'm getting frightened.
Okay, but at some point, they eat the sheep.
Little Lamsy
Wee
Divey.
lambsy, yeah, those.
Oh,
And as cute and cuddly as sheep are, they're
leg of
also
lamb.
delicious.
They are.
Rack of lamb,
Leg of lamb.
leg of lamb.
Mutton. Mutton chops.
Yeah,
Lamb
so-
chops.
We go down the whole list.
Lamb stew. And you know who ate lamb? Cute, cuddly lamb? Our Lord.
That's right.
At the Passover meal, ladies and gentlemen, they didn't go out for chicken McNuggets.
Well, that would be another animal that's eaten. You know, if you really want to see something about eating meat, there's a documentary called Food Inc.,
Ooh.
which I guarantee will make you not want a hamburger or KFC or pepperoni pizza for at least a few days.
A few days.
Yeah.
Till they come up with another special.
Our culture is so removed from the whole thing of slaughtering animals and eating them,
Yeah.
and yet we eat more of these animals that we hide ourselves from
Yeah.
the slaughter of than anybody.
Well, that's because they grow hydroponically in supermarkets.
That's right.
They would just chop off pieces of meat and cuts the growing.
Yeah, the food producing industries have got the growing of animals and the slaughter of animals down to an industrial science.
And it's off stage.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind.
Kind of like abortion. Could we not go there? Anyway. But no, it's very true. And you know what's funny? They have this PETA, people for the ethical treatment of animals, that, of course, cruel people like you used to say meant people eating tasty animals. I remember that. That was in your lines.
Oh, was it?
But, yeah. But it so happens that Julia Child was played by Meryl Streep in Julie and Julia. I didn't know this until fairly recently. Meryl Streep did a brilliant job of playing Julia Child. Absolutely got her to the core. But she must have known, as I recently found out, Julia Child hated her stinking guts. She could not stand Meryl Streep. Why? Because Meryl Streep was a PETA spokesperson. And if anybody loved their meat, it was Julia Child. Oh, yes, the meat bring it down. Save the liver. No, she was great. But, so, I mean, that's the problem with veganism is, I mean, you already picked up on it, that it elevates animals over people. You know that already. Do they have any good points? Well, I mean, look, the factory farming to which you referred is really disgusting and awful, but it has had one singular benefit, and that is that it's made meat available to the poor. If we were still raising everything organically, the way it was done before World War II, a good chunk of the people of this country would be lucky to have meat more than once a week, which is the way it was. Just wouldn't be able to afford it. Now you might say, well, that'd be healthier for them. Well, that's nice for you to say. Grandma for us all, nanny to the masses. But the fact of the matter is that one of the reasons Americans in the post-war era felt good about themselves is they could have steak every night if they wanted it. They may say it's a terrible diet, they may say this and that, but the era of good feeling of the post-war age was partly generated by that widely available meat. And it is the one thing that really remains to us from that time. I mean, stop and think. When you were young, all right, a middle-class family could aspire to lead a middle-class lifestyle, whatever that was, put their kids through college, go on vacation,
Retire,
very important,
own a house.
and own a house, right, those 5 things. Now you can do any one of them. Can't do them all. And the only relic remaining to us of that time is the fact that virtually anybody can go out to Denny's or to some other chain and have a cheap steak every day of the week. That's the only thing that remains to us from that post-war prosperity. Sizzler, that's the one I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody can go out to a Sizzler and have a steak any night of the week. You have to be pretty poor not to be able to do that. You have to be able to. You have to be pretty poor not to be able to bring home a steak from the market and fry it up every. I don't say you should, but the fact that you could do it that's our last piece of post-war prosperity. If we got rid of factory farming, that would go. And what you would have left is what we had before. And the amount of, I mean, think about that. Think about only being able to have meat one night a week. Think of what you'd be subsisting on. So, I don't like factory farming, and it has a lot of, I mean, it's inhumane, of course. It also has a lot of medical problems, given the diseases they can catch, the kinds of antibiotics and so forth they have to give the animals to providing it. I mean, there's all sorts of arguments like that. You bet. And I can't deny them.
Food Inc.
Food Inc.
Yeah.
I can't deny them. But I also know what the alternative would be. And that would come with a lot of other problems. So whatever you end up doing.
Well, also when is veganism good or evil? All right, that touches on the whole notion that in our society there are these things that really are not good or evil, but are made to be good or seen to be good by society.
Yeah, they're
like
more
being concerned about not eating meat, or being concerned about global warming, or
without actually
buying a small little car you can't fit your foot into, to preserve the environment. Or whatever.
It's what they call virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling?
Virtue signaling.
Yeah.
It's stuff that basically doesn't really require anything out of you, but allows you to show everybody what a good person you are. I'm against smoking. That's nice. Have you ever smoked? No. What are you talking about?
So when you consider what we consider good today with what a Western society would consider good, say, 500 years ago,
yeah,
the whole idea of goodness would have been moral then.
Yeah.
Now it is behavioral.
Well, it is. And the interesting thing is that the church has always taught that one should abstain from meat when one is pursuing holiness. Different times of the year, Lenten, Advent, or different states of life, certain monastic orders. But notice that is a giving up a good for a greater good. You see, it's not doing it either because meat itself is evil, or because not eating meat is all by itself good. I mean, I can tell you from experience that when I don't eat meat in Lent and Advent, a lot of the temptations I usually deal with vanish. They just do, because I guess I'm staring hungrily into the windows of restaurants. I don't know. But seriously, I believe that there's certainly a correlation between that and the idea that giving up meat allows you to make a more perfect search for holiness. That's fine. But doing it because, we mustn't hurt the poor widow. I want animals. If you don't, who will? An animal of prey, obviously. But then there's another problem, and that's this. What if tomorrow everybody in this country became vegan? What would happen to the herds of cattle and sheep and pigs? What would happen to them? They would die. I mean, we only raise them so we can use them.
That reminds me of a parallel issue. Talking about what makes people feel good. There were these Texas ranchers that became aware of certain animals that are in danger of extinction in Africa.
All
right. And so what they did was they brought some over to their ranches in Texas, turned them loose, and then they hunters could come and give them exorbitant fees to go and hunt these animals on their ranches.
Huh.
Okay. Now, of course, the PETA people got very upset about this, and in fact brought lawsuits against them and so on. And as I remember an interview with one of these ranchers, he said, "Okay, that there's now a court order. I cannot do this." All right. So this animal, which I have saved from extinction, is now going to go extinct.
Because
Okay. Because in Africa, they're already gone. I got the last few, and me keeping them alive was on the bait. I didn't do this because I'd like to pet them. Okay. I did this because it was profitable.
yeah,
Take the profit away, I'm not going to keep these animals alive.
no.
So, good show, PETA, for killing this animal off. Okay, so
Pull it out of the cow.
all right. Here is a profoundly important question
Oh boy, the kind I love.
from Patrick DeSantis. Can you explain the circumstances surrounding the Shroud of Turin and what evidence exists that it is real?
Well, yes. What's the next question? I answered yes, and said if I could discuss it. I said I could. Now, let's go on. No.
You had to.
No.
Okay, well,
I can do this.
you can?
I can.
But I could too.
All right, that makes two of us.
Okay.
So you want to go first?
I want to go first.
Go first.
Because there was this guy named Martin Feeney who wrote a book.
The Endless Knot, a
Yes.
12 hanky book.
Yes. And on page 429.
Wow, you got
At
this
the
stuff.
bottom.
You're like a bibliophile.
Almost. I did, I just pulled this off the shelf at random.
That's beautiful.
Found it just like that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like a movie or something.
Yes, and it says here, see, there's this sergeant of the police force, and he's talking with Father Baptist.
All right.
And Sergeant Wick says, "So you really believe the Shroud of Turin is genuine?" And so Father says, "I haven't enough faith to believe otherwise." What do you mean? Father sat back in his chair. To believe the shroud is counterfeit, I would have to accept that a medieval artist, all those hundreds of years ago, somehow harnessed the radiant energy necessary to project the image onto a cloth. A three-dimensional image, mind you. I would have to accept that this forger would use such knowledge and expertise in this peculiar way and not in some other more profitable venture. After all, interjected the gardener, considering the weaponry prevalent at the time, he could have rallied an army and conquered Europe.
Yeah, I would say. A couple of nukes to the right places.
The whole world, for that matter, said Father. I would also have to believe that this charlatan understood modern photography centuries before its invention, so that he would cast a perfect negative image. Furthermore, I would have to embrace the notion that he understood the specifics of Roman torture and crucifixion, centuries after virtually all knowledge of such things had been lost. Not to mention that he somehow acquired first-century pollens indigenous to a few hundred square miles around Jerusalem and painstakingly embedded them in the fibers of the cloth, suspecting that centuries hence such microscopic biological fingerprints would be detectable and classifiable. No, Sergeant, I haven't enough faith to believe all that. It's far easier for me to accept that the thing is exactly what it appears to be, the burial cloth of Jesus Christ.
Well, yeah. Well, I have that kind of faith. I believe. No, it's true. And of course, there's a lot of other things that are interesting about the shroud. For starters, the image itself has bloodstains on it. The image is the same image as that on the Sudarium of Oviedo, which was apparently the face cloth. They were put over and then the shroud on top of that. It's the image is the same kind of thing, and the same blood type on the two. Which blood type, AB, is also the blood in every one of the Eucharistic miracles we have. Where wine transforms into blood, or where a host bleeds, or something like that. It's always the same blood type. And interestingly, also in those regards, is that in those areas where they're able to detect human DNA, they can't map it. And they can't map it because it has only one strand. To be able to map DNA, you need two strands, which everybody has because we all have fathers and mothers. But this stuff has one strand, and so it's not mappable. That's just an aside. But you look at the totality of these things. You look at the also the resemblance between the Veronica's veil and Mapapello and the one in Rome and so on and so forth with the face and the shroud. It's also interesting. One of the things I stumbled across, the modern science going to work on this stuff is wonderful. But the question was, which is real amongst the Veronica's veil, the one in Rome, the one at Mapapello, and so on and so forth. What this fellow very, very intelligently did was he took computer images of each of them and set them up. And what he found was that they were congruent with there having been a single veil that was separated lengthwise. So in other words, imagine Veronica wipes his face, it leaves the image. But the image, if you divide the cloth this way, you've got image on each section. And that he discovered by he basically, via computer, reassembled the veil from the pieces that we have known. I mean, oceans of ink have been spilled saying, no, this one's the real one, no, that the real one, no, that. The fellow came up with the conclusion that the 3 or 4 most famous are actually all real because they were all one piece originally, one cloth. I find all that kind of thing fascinating. And when they go to work on the shroud, it's astonishing. The problem I had with the debunking is that portions of the shroud, especially the section around the ends of it, were replaced. And it was from those ends that they took the threads. They wouldn't allow them to take it from further in. But that's precisely the worst place to go. I mean, why this didn't occur to anyone? And of course, one of the things that popped into my head was how St. Francis de Sales was with a group of Italian bishops holding the thing out for veneration. And he's sweating out. And the bishop next to him says, oh, this is terrible that you're sweating on the shroud. And he said, oh, we're better than to mingle my sweat with that of our Lord, and so on, which is nice and religious sounding. But it ruins the utility of the thing for carbon-14 dating. So, anyway, that's what I have to say.
Okay.
All right. What else we got?
Okay, let's see. Rafael Martinez.
Raphael, what do you got?
Okay, since I've been on vacation in Panama, I've been thinking of how a monarchy would ever exist in Latin American countries. In Latin America, it seems that a wariness towards dictators would put off most of the population, and the populations here are mostly Catholic. How would a population with such a mindset ever come to accept a king or emperor?
Well, I would have to say that you have not picked up on something in their history. They're not really wary of dictators at all. They tend to jump on them. They love them very often until they get really obnoxious. Then they overthrow them and put in another dictator. Most of Latin America has been under dictators, more of its history, than under duly elected presidents. There are exceptions, but Panama, for instance, they repeatedly elected a right-wing authoritarian figure called Arnulfo Arias, whom the United States hated because he was right-wing. And he was deposed several times at the order of the American government. And on one occasion, replaced with Omar Torrijos, who was a left-wing dictator, and was the one Jimmy Carter rewarded by giving the Panama Canal. And then, of course, there was Noriega, who was so bad even the United States couldn't take him anymore. So we went and removed him. But you look at the history of Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, Colombia, Venezuela, Chile, Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Cuba. all of this, the search for the strong man, is what they call caudillismo. But I would say that caudillismo itself is an unconscious search for the king because of the way in which Latin American independence was accomplished. Something like 3/4 of the royalist armies in those wars were native born, a lot of them Indian, fighting against the revolutionaries. You see. So just like in this country, we like to forget about the loyalists because it's an easier analysis to say, oh, it was us freedom-loving Americans against the evil slavery-loving British. So too with their history writing, in which they like to pretend that it was the freedom-loving Americans, in their sense, fighting against the evil slavery-loving Spanish, but that's just not true. In fact, in all likelihood, if Napoleon had not deposed the King of Spain, installed his brother in his place, and then forced all of the Spanish Empire to choose between supporting Napoleon's brother, this liberal parliament that formed in Seville, or the son of the last legitimate king, then probably the independence of Latin America would not have come out the way it did. It might have come out very, very differently, possibly the way in Britain the independence of Canada, Australia, and New Zealand took place, which I think was much, much better, and they're better run countries as a rule than you had in Latin America. Part of the problem, too, is that Catholics, cultural Catholics, are not by nature compromisers. They want truth. That's got to be absolute, which is why when you meet French or Italian or Spanish communists or whatever, you'll find they will not compromise because they look at communism the way they would look at faith if they hadn't lost it. So that's what I think.
Okay.
I think that if you ever have a king in Spain who wants to do more than just preside at Ibero-American meetings, who knows?
Strange things happen
In this world.
Okay. Here's one for you. Another one from Rafael Martinez. How come he gets 2 questions?
I don't know.
Do you have a list of good literature or any type of book that every educated Catholic should read?
Oh, wow. Well, yes. First and foremost is The Endless Knot by William Biersack III.
Which just happened to be on this shelf right here. Yeah. There we are.
So if you order a copy now, you may or may not get it signed by the author.
Yeah. Hey, I'll sign them.
There you go. You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? My offer, which, as you know, ended August 15th, is being succeeded by this man's. Order Bill's books by Halloween, all the way up till Halloween, and he will sign it for you.
I will sign them in purple and black.
So let that be a
and
lesson.
Draw little bats around the pages if you want.
Not each
For
of the
Father
pages.
Baptist.
You sounded like the crypt keeper just then.
Okay, I think I would suggest The Catholic Quest for the Grail by a certain Coulombe. What were we saying about one and onlys? But he's only one of many.
Yes, well,
yeah, anyway, a mere Charles among Coulombes.
This gathering of the Mutual Admiration Society is now in session.
Yes.
No, well, I appreciate that. But beyond us, I would say,
what is beyond us?
Well, there are.
I mean, you also wrote that wonderful book on the papal zouaves.
Yes, I did. And you also wrote that tremendous book of Mary, There's Never Enough.
Mm-hmm.
I could do this all day.
Yeah, I could too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, the eyes of the great were elsewhere.
Every man today call Rome.
The darkness did not.
That was a hard one. Okay.
Yeah, that one.
None dare call it America. No.
Gee.
What is it? The one about
I don't know.
the history of America.
I don't know.
What's it called?
It's got a name, I'm sure.
I'm sure it does. Well, at first it was a 7-volume set.
And then it came out as one.
As one.
Puritan's Empire.
Puritan's Empire, that's it.
We could do this out loud.
And we could. Let's keep it up.
Oh.
Go ahead. You can't remember any more of my titles anyway. Like The Search for St. Valeria. You forgot that one too.
Out of the Depths.
It's okay.
I remember that one.
Out of the Depths. Very good.
Okay.
All right.
But also, let's not forget our friend Jean Garanger,
Yes.
Liturgical Year. Belloc and Chesterton, of course.
Okay. Yeah. Hilaire Belloc. My favorite Hilaire Belloc is The Great Heresies.
No.
I like that.
It's a tremendous book. And I would say Léon Gautier's Chivalry.
Mm-hmm.
Really anything Tumbler House prints.
Yes.
I'm not saying that
Let's
to be
put
funny.
in a good old plug for Tumbler House.
Well,
Let's put in a big plug for Tumbler House.
this is my last hurrah, so we got to.
Yes.
Order everything on the Tumbler House website, ladies and gentlemen. Clean them out.
Yeah.
Clear them out.
That's right.
Force them to put less money into the suits, French vacations, and more money into printing books.
That's it.
Oh. And maybe a little more money to the commissariat as well. Did you stop by the commissariat to see me when you came in?
No.
Oh no, you just appeared here.
Yeah. You know.
You know what I'll do for you?
What?
When we're finished with the podcast,
We'll go to the cafeteria.
we'll go and we'll sit down.
Oh, wow.
I'll bet you'll like
Have
Friday Mackerel Special.
Have a bowl of Jell-O.
You know, it starts out as clear soup at the beginning of the week, and ends up as Jell-O by Friday. You know what every single thing in the commissariat has in common in terms of its recipe with everything else? Long exposure to heat temps. You know what they can do to a fish stick?
Back to books. Okay, now you don't want to just be a stuffy old academic about the Catholic faith.
No, you don't.
Therefore, you should have Father G.K. Chesterton's Father Brown books.
Yes.
I would go so far as to say you should have A Canticle for Leibowitz.
Just going to say, yes.
By Arthur Miller.
Walter Miller.
Walter Miller?
Yeah.
Walter Miller?
Not Arthur
Walter M. Miller.
Miller. No, Arthur Miller.
Yeah, so that's science fiction.
It is science fiction.
And
Well, if we're going to go that route, anything by Anthony Boucher.
yes,
Let me see. We can do this. Of course, Lord of the Rings. The whole Tolkienic exercise. The Little World of Don Camillo series
oh yeah, that's right.
by Gareschi.
I've only read the first one. There were like 6.
Well, there were 6,
Yeah.
and the last one gets really nasty about the present day.
Oh, yeah?
Both the changes in liturgy and the changes in society.
Oh boy.
It's called Don Camillo and the Flower Children. That's really what it's called, and it's not nice.
Good. I'll have to get that.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And
I knew a reason. I knew there was a reason I beamed down here today.
No, well, to show the Halloween magic at work. And speaking of Halloween magic, there are actually books by some non-Catholics who are kind of Catholic-esque in their attitudes toward things. Charles Williams comes to mind. The fiction of Ralph Adams Cram. There's a lot of other people like that.
If I had known ahead of time, I would have gone through my library and tried to reconstruct it. Well, that's a few. That'll get you started.
And believe me, once you get started, there'll be more and more and more popping up, I assure you. My mind is going. I was going to say Classics Illustrated, the comics, but never mind. What else we got?
That is getting far afield. Well, here's our last one.
All right.
From Emmanuel. What has caused the decline of faith in young people? What can I do about it as a young adult? Also, was Catholicism or Christianity ever taught to children in America in public schools?
Oof. Well, I would say the reason why young people don't have the faith is because the old people in their lives, their clergy and their parents didn't have the faith. You can't teach what you don't have. You cannot be a reservoir if you don't have any water. Uh, most kids who go to Catholic schools are not taught the Catholic faith. And it's presented to them in such a way that confirmation becomes graduation from church. Uh, and that is the fault, secondarily of the parents, but primarily the hierarchy. You know, when they're not busy chiseling off the dead, the bereaved, they're busy not imparting the faith.
Well, I know there was an excuse among my parents' generation that we sent our kids to Catholic school,
Yeah,
and we assumed that they would teach them the Catholic faith. There's a problem with that.
there's a big problem with that.
Okay.
That's that God made the teacher the primary teacher of the child and absolved the parent of all responsibility.
Exactly. Now, it really gets back on them, is if they believed in the Catholic faith, that it really is what will save your soul from eternal destruction, then wouldn't they have felt compelled
Of course.
to be the teachers of their children, rather than to hand it over to a bunch of nuns, who many of the nuns involved were rather nasty.
Well, I'll
Now,
say
I'm not saying all,
no.
but I had a few bringers at my school. I know you did at yours.
I'll say IHM means I hate men. That's what it stood for.
Yeah.
Yep. And you had that one. Your beard, I remember, was based on hers. Sister Mary Butch.
Sister Butch, yeah. Not exactly, but no. But the thing is, a lot of women ended up in the convents that should not have been nuns.
Yeah.
Okay, and for some of them, it was the only way to get an education or whatever. So then they end up having to try to teach a lot of bratlets, something that the bratlets don't really want to.
Don't want to hear. And they themselves had a shaky hold on. Because, another thing that happened, not only did you have women who shouldn't be in the convent, but because after World War II, there was a huge explosion in the numbers of Catholic hospitals and schools. To meet that and the need for, woman power to man them, a number of orders cheapened their preparation. And so, you might be taught that you need to fold the cuff like this, but you're never told why. You're not told how it commemorates our Holy Foundress's escape from the Turks at the siege of Vienna. How she had all the nuns put their thing just like so they could escape their burning convent. Because that's where a lot of this would come from. Either history of the order or some spiritual symbolism. This shows that as Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament exposed, we're always on guard for our Lord. It was those two sorts of things that determined the shape of the sisters' habit.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were pretty odd looking, because of whatever. Well, they stopped in a lot of orders. They stopped teaching them the why in order to get them out there quickly. Some of them, including the I Hate Men people, my own, started putting novices in the classroom, which, their constitutions required that these women be fully formed and in final rounds before they went out to deal with little monsters. They're sending novices out to the classroom. These are people maybe 5 or 10 years older than their charges. So,
well, even a generation back before all that, my mother still has never forgotten how she was Hungarian, and the nuns that taught her were Poles, I think. They just hated the Hungarians or they were Italians, and it was some
whatever they were,
international crisis. So they treated her badly, and that really, hurt her.
Yeah.
To this day, she's 89 and still talks about it.
It's true. They were so mean. Oh, they were so mean.
Yeah.
I can hear you about saying it.
Yeah, but it's still, just the other day I was having lunch with one of my teachers from back then, my 7th grade teacher. And we were talking about how can you raise kids today? in the Catholic faith. And I said, well, how did they raise kids in Rome? You know, there has always been the challenge
Always.
of raising Catholic children.
And what makes it possible is when the parents of said children see it as their primary goal or primary focus. So, in answer to your question, what can young Catholics do? Don't do that. Everything you saw us do? No! Bad touch.
Yeah.
Don't you do that. Look at us as like Marley's ghost. Whoa!
Clang, 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 clang.
You have yet a chance and a hope of escaping our fate. But what's the guy's name? Emmanuel. So, at any rate, know your faith and see it as the thing that will keep you from hell, if anything will.
If you really believe it will, then you'll be more inclined to act that way.
And to pass it on, when one day, as Cliff Richards, your favorite rock and roller, said, one day you'll teach the young ones, someday you'll teach the young ones of your own. That's the thing. You know, you're going to go, honestly, from being a young Catholic now
to being an old codger Catholic.
Yeah, and it's going to happen just like that. Even quicker than your apparition here. By the way, thanks. That caused me. I was a heart attack when you showed up like that. Anyway,
I'm going to disappear again in a minute so that Mr. Franchini can be back down and wind this up.
Oh, that's too scary.
Okay, but I did want to clear up one question before I depart, and that is, will there be any further Father Baptist books?
Yes.
And it's a hard question to answer because there have been some complications in my life. And until those complications are resolved, I can't promise anything. So I'm asking for your prayers. Those of you who like the Father Baptist books and want to see more of them, I could use your prayers. Okay? All right. But that being said, I'm going to beam up now.
The hour draweth near. Midnight doth approach.
I'm giddy as a schoolboy.
No, you mustn't leave me, William. You mustn't.
But I must.
No.
Well, you're leaving all of us, you cad.
But you can't go away. You can't do this. No.
Yes, I can.
Look, don't take Tom Servo. Well,
it's been good seeing you, Charles.
It's been good seeing you.
And we're all going to miss you a lot.
I'm going to miss all of you, and you in particular. I suppose it's very much like Judy Garland said at the end of The Wizard of Oz. If you don't find what it is you didn't have when you were home, then you never really had it at all, or something.
Are you a good witch?
or a bad witch?
Okay, here I come. Scotty, are you ready?
How does he do that?
Here I go.
How do you... It's autumn magic. Halloween.
I'm back.
I see that.
Wow, that was cool.
Or did I just dream it all? It is getting close to Halloween, you know, and one dreams strange dreams in the autumn. Did I dream that, or were you really gone?
I think I was really gone.
Well, welcome back.
Did you guys have a fun time?
Yeah, we sure did. You know, it occurred to me, though, we didn't answer the last bit of the last question of Emmanuel, which was, yes, they taught Protestantism of a sort in public schools. They had to pray the Our Father every morning, the Protestant version. They'd read a piece out of the Bible and things like that. But anyway, well, this I guess, whether I like it or not, we're coming close on to the end of an era.
Yeah, the final episode.
Final episode.
I hope it was a good one.
Well, it was. It was. I mean, I won't say it was better for not having you here, but I will say it was great having Bill. I wish we could have done that a lot more, but unfortunately, the same problem with his book is the same problem with us doing this kind of thing.
Right.
As it stands, I am supposed to be gone for the next 3 years, though presumably I'll be back on vacation and so forth. We might do things then. I don't know. But it has been a splendid run. I've enjoyed doing this these past 2 years immensely. And I miss you very much, old man.
I missed you too, Charles.
I know you'll keep the fight going and all that. And for those of you who will be missing Off the Menu on Mondays, just remember one important thing. And I hope we've taught you this, if nothing else. That important thing is to not just simply to take what you're given as all there is. Whether it be in political or religious ideas or philosophy or anything else. When someone tells you, well, this is it, that's all there is to it, there's nothing more. In other words, when they hand you the menu, see if there's anything off it. All the best restaurants, allow you to order something off the menu. Well, with that, I guess our time has come to an end.
We've reached the end, ladies and gentlemen. And so, this is Vincent Franchini and Charles Coulombe signing off.
Happy Halloween. Although we still got a little while yet.